In 1649, to St. George's Hill, a ragged band they called the Diggers came to show the people's will. They defied the landlords, they defied the laws. They were the dispossessed, reclaiming what was theirs. We come in peace, they said, to dig and sow. We come to work the land in common and to make the wasteland grow. They said, divided,
I listened
we will
to
make
Kathy Hunt's talk at one of your previous meetings, and she talked about the sweated trades. There are a lot of similarities here to some of the other industries that Kathy talked about. You had intense labour conditions, poor working environment, low wages paid by piece, particularly for the women workers, a ready supply of labour, and a lack of trade union organisation. And these were characteristic of both the factory and the home working in the villages at the time. I'm going to quote from one of the workers who wrote about the conditions in Eam, and he said, "Girls who sit over sewing machines become round-shouldered and lose their eyesight by continual straining when the light is bad. One of the contemptible actions of our firm is refusing to light the gas at early morning or on a dull day." So often the girls or women had to bring in candles for themselves to light up their work. That quote was from this man here, Harry Dawson, who was a clicker at Ridgway Brothers for over 30 years and was sacked in 1918 for alleged union activity. He wrote a detailed description of the labour process in the factories at the time, which is quite unusual. It's a rare worker's eye view of what was happening. He was married to Margaret, who you can see here, who before the strike was periodically an outworker.
With eyelids heavy and red. A woman sat in unwomanly rags, plying her needle and thread. Stitch, stitch, stitch. In poverty, hunger and dirt. And still with a voice of dolorous pitch, she sang the song of the shirt. Sweated labour was brought to the government's attention in the late 1880s, accompanied by a great deal of talk and a lot of hand-wringing. A House of Lords committee defined sweating as unduly low rates of wages, excessive hours of labour, and insanitary state of workplaces. But despite being given a name, not much else was done. Nothing was preventing thousands of the most hidden of workers, often, but not always, outworkers, taking in work to do at home, from being exploited by employers seeking only to maximise their profits. Sweating was prevalent across many industries, both in people's homes and in factories, and rush orders often resulted in whole families being engaged in, for example, box making, including matchboxes, sack making, sewing beads onto shoes, making hairbrushes and umbrellas, belts and ties, covering tennis balls, stuffing toys, all sorts of jobs. And work that required glue to be heated or fur to be pulled were, as you can imagine, among the most odious jobs to be done within the home, causing significant health problems in living spaces with inadequate ventilation and space. Here we have a description by trade union leader Julia Varley of a family working together in a dark and ill-ventilated house. The table, she said, was filled with cards and buttons. 3 children and an old man sat with fingers flying up and down, scarcely a pause, as the buttons were stitched onto the cards. The investigator, who was a clergyman, with trembling voice, questioned the woman and found that she was hoping to have a good week. They were trying to finish the last lot, which, if done in time, would bring in 6 shillings for the week. Mother, 5 children, aged grandfather.
Heard in Nottingham Trade Union Council. The April executive resolved that the Secretary, Jack Charlesworth, investigate the allegations. A motion on racial discrimination was put to the main council by Mrs. Mickey Shaw on behalf of the Nottingham branch of the Clerical and Administrative Workers Union. The meeting, attended by over 100 delegates from trade union branches representing the majority of trade unionists in the city, was carried with only 2 against. It declared its opposition to colour bar in any form. It recognises the right of all workers to earn a living, irrespective of race, and condemns the action of employers and tradespeople who discriminate against coloured people, and stated its intention to render all possible assistance to colonial workers in Nottingham to ensure that they had every opportunity of securing employment and of enjoying full trade union rights and conditions. A colour bar subcommittee was set up. Appeals to the local press were made to bring cases of discrimination to the council, and coloured or colonial workers, and all the way through this, the reference to names of people that goes back and forth, were invited to attend council. A motion agreed in August recommended that the City Labour Party, who the Trades Council worked closely with, should take up action in the City Council as is necessary to remove any racial discrimination that may exist on the city's municipal undertakings. This was aimed especially at city transport. The Trades Council was well aware that Nottingham City Transport had serious labour shortage, having made representations over the past year to the East Midlands Traffic Commissioner over just this on their behalf. But colour bar was strongly in place. George Powell remembered, if I quote what he wrote, "I applied for a job as a bus conductor and was told I wasn't intelligent enough to be a conductor." Many other people, and some people who are in the audience today, went through that experience. And he wasn't the only one. When 4 Transport and General Workers Union branches disaffiliated from the Trades Council at the end of that year, it was clear they were not going to give up the colour bar easily. It would be 7 years before they returned.
Back from Bonnie's War, things ain't the same no more. After fighting Waterloo, there's no work for us to do. They've found a machine to do the work of men. From Suffolk down to Kent, you hear the same lament. Our families must starve while you feast on fatted carp. For the priest and his tithes we must pay with our lives. With no voice in the land, who speaks for the working man? We have been quiet for too long, so now we sing this song.
I'm the man, the very fat man that waters the workers' beer. And I'm the man, the very fat man that waters the workers' beer. And what do I care if it makes them ill, if it makes them terribly queer? I've a car, a yacht and an aeroplane, and I waters the workers' beer.
Now when I waters the workers' beer, I puts in strychnine, some methylated spirits and a drop of kerosene. But such a brew so terribly strong would make them terribly queer. I reaches me hand for the watering can and I waters the workers' beer. Oh,
I'm the man, the very fat man that waters the workers' beer.